Lunko. Good day, everyone. Today we are talking about New World. Yes, you heard it right. The upcoming MMORPG New World is launching on the 28th of September. And what better time than to just talk, think, just theorycraft about the game. I was doing some research here and there, and some interesting information is on the wiki that wasn't shown in game, or at least not clearly. So let's just go over things and enjoy our time. I mean, it's hype. A new MMO release is almost always hype, unless it's a Korean MMO. But there are some nice ones. Admittedly, I played a lot of Black Desert, but let's not get into that. Okay, New World. I was looking at the attributes page on the wiki, and when going over it, some interesting information was here, and I wasn't able to test this myself. I tried to not play the beta too much, okay? But when you look at strength, for example, it shows that a Warhammer gets plus 2.5% damage from strength, okay? We know, we already knew there was a difference between weapons that only have one attribute against weapons that have two attributes. But it seems there is also a difference between the weapons that have one attribute. Because if you look at the sword damage, it only gets 2% strength damage. And that's something to keep in mind if you want to really specialize in either damage, tanking, or whatever. And yeah, the sword will most likely be used for a tank build because sword is at the moment the only weapon in the game that can be combined with the shield. We don't know if this will change in the future, but that's how it is for now. It would have been pretty crazy to have a hatchet and shield, for example, but they didn't go that direction. What I found interesting as well, or is a sword dexterity? Oh, this is my bad completely. I thought a sword was a full strength weapon. Um, let's see. Do I have it open here? One-handed weapon. Oh no, this doesn't show the attributes. New World attributes. Yeah, but I was already on that. Okay, I'll have to take a look at that later, but okay, my bad. It seems sword is a strength and dexterity weapon. But what I find somewhat surprising is that the bow has 2.4%, while the musket has 2.5%. I kind of wonder how they check that out. But this is not why I wanted to show you this page. The most important thing here is, at least to me, focus. Because focus in game, it tells you it increases healing done. Very straightforward. Higher focus, increased healing done. But when you read this fandom page, focus governs your mana recovery rate and your cooldown times. Higher focus not only means that you can cast more spells more regularly, but also that you can use your cooldown based abilities with a higher frequency. So it increases your mana regeneration rate and your cooldown reduction. Okay? Initially, when I was looking in game, I saw this. The threshold is increased mana regeneration rate. I was already aware of that. But the fact that just putting points in focus also increases your mana regen and your cooldown reduction allows for some pretty interesting builds, and might mean that hybrid builds, or for example paladin builds as they are called on Reddit, have a shorter cooldown reduction on their abilities. And having shorter cooldowns can be quite game changing for dueling, but also on PvE. Because if you can use a heavy AoE ability on, for example, your hammer or great axe more often, then depending on how much more often you can use it, it might make up for the lower damage because you've put points in focus. We also know there are the gems that part of your damage skills with your other main stat, your, for example, focus, they were nerfed in the open beta. So we'll have to remember that clearly. But cooldown reduction can be a very, very powerful stat. And in duels, if you can use your stuns more often, then that's insane. And especially in group content, if you have a tank build that you are, for example, fully going tank support, but a CC tank support, if you have very high cooldown reduction, your role can actually change a lot in group content. Because sure, we also have stronger heals with focus, which isn't shown here, which is pretty interesting, but we know its main stat, your weapon skills with focus, I mean your life staff. So that's all clear. But the cooldown reduction is awesome. Mana regeneration rate is also more than welcome, especially with some weapons. I mean, the fire staff has very, very high mana costs. And in a lot of builds, fire staff was used together with Ice Gauntlet. For the straightforward reason that Ice Gauntlet has a way when you use your ice block. Sorry, I forgot the actual name in this game, but it's basically ice block for insane mana regeneration on a pretty short cooldown. So that would make up for the very high cost of fire abilities. But if you get way higher mana regeneration rate by dumping points into focus, and you see here, increased mana pool, increased duration on casted buffs, increased mana on any self or group kill. So imagine this. PvE, I'm talking here. If you are grinding mobs and you get 30 mana back for every kill, okay? That combined with mana regeneration rate makes it so you can basically keep using your abilities. Because mobs can die pretty quickly to some of the stronger abilities, especially fire staff abilities. And now you think, like, I might not be able to spend much, but then you have to consider that cooldown reduction is also a thing. And it's not much, but if you get this high enough, every percent of cooldown reduction helps. It truly does. Anyone who played MMORPGs or looter shooters or anything with cooldowns, MOBAs, you know that cooldown reduction can be a very, very strong thing and that every percent helps. So, focus is honestly not bad. And we can take this a step further because, as a lot of you people know, the Void Gauntlet has been data mined. And it has also been shown, let's see if I have it open, here. This was a stream a while back that showed us that the Void Gauntlet, the blunderbuss and daggers are being added to the game. We don't know if all three or one of them is at the actual release, but they are coming. And Void Gauntlet has been data mined to be a focus weapon, which means that the value of focus goes up even more. Because while life staff is primarily a defense weapon, it's heals, heal over time, buffs, cleanse, that kind of stuff. The Void Gauntlet has more than that. So let's take a look at it. The data mine unreleased weapon abilities for the Void Gauntlet. As all weapons, it has two rows of abilities. The left one is more melee based. It has Void Blade as its first ability, which is summon a blade of void energy that converts your basic attacks to melee. Tap basic attacks to perform a quick slash that deals a certain amount of weapon damage, or hold to perform a thrust attack that deals a certain amount of weapon damage. Both attacks inflict disintegrate on successful hits, dealing weapon damage per second and reducing damage absorption. Damage absorption is basically armor penetration, if you can lower it. So damage absorption is your how much damage you take, how much damage you absorb with your armor and buffs, etc. So if you can reduce their damage absorption, even if they don't have any buffs, it will increase your damage output. A clear example of this is the Great Hammer has damage absorption on one of its first talents, one of its first passives. And it lowers it by, I think, 10 or 15%. When you use that passive, all your damage is increased by that percent. It's really straightforward. Lowering damage absorption means increasing your damage. But, now is the big but. Reducing damage absorption on an enemy is a debuff, which means that everyone hitting that same target does more damage, which makes Void Blade not only good for your own damage, but also for the damage of your team. Very important. Also, it increases your own damage absorption. So while normally life staff is not really the tankiest when it comes to actually taking hits, it's good at bringing back your health, it's good at buffing and removing debuffs, but this makes it so that you can become actually tankier. It's still the question about how high these actual percentage are, but that's okay. We'll see how it goes. It doesn't need to be overpowered or anything. I don't want it to be overpowered. I just like this general playstyle. Successful heavy attacks heal, and per disintegrate stack, that's the burn stack that you place with your Void Blade, and it seems it can stack multiple times. Okay? And we can go over all these abilities, but that's a bit much for now. But what I'm getting to is Focus has a lot of potential on multiple builds. So I'm going Focus for sure. There's no question. When the game releases, I am going Focus. The only thing that could change this for me is if Daggers release and they have Stealth. Because Stealth can be game breaking in both the good way and the bad way. But we'll see what Daggers bring. Blunderbuss might be interesting for strength builds. It's somewhat of a shame that I can't make multiple characters, but well, yeah, you can have two characters, but not on the same server. Anyway, this is the main thing I wanted to talk about. I'll look at this trailer some other time. Is there anything else for this video? No. Okay. Next time we'll be talking more about some of the other attributes and maybe even some builds, because it's just fun, you know. I wish you all a great day, and I hope you're hyped for release that's getting closer and closer. It's not even 2 weeks away now, which still feels way too long. I'm constantly complaining here in real life that I just wish it was the 28th already. I want to play it so badly. Though living towards it also has its nice things. So yeah, let's all enjoy this hype and hope we'll get some patch notes for the actual release soon. I'm counting on it to be released 1 or at most 2 days before the release of the game. But yeah, patch notes are awesome. I love them. Have a nice day, and I'll talk to you all later.